Chapter 9 Notes. After resting for half an hour, Steve, who had adopted the name Klein, finally recovered. During this time, he noticed 4 black dots on the back of his right hand, forming a small square. The dots faded from dark to light and soon disappeared, but Klein knew they were still hidden within his body, waiting to be awakened. 4 dots. A square. Could they correspond to the 4 corners and 4 main foods? Maybe I won't need to prepare the main foods anymore. I can just move on to steps and spells? Klein speculated. It seemed like a good idea, but having something of such strange origin on his body always induced fear due to the unknown. He thought about the inexplicable magical techniques from Earth that worked here. His strange dreamlike travels, the mysterious, hallucinatory world of gray mist, and the insane whispers surrounding the rituals. Despite the heat of late June, Klein shivered uncontrollably, feeling the ancient and powerful emotion that humans know all too well. Fear, particularly the fear of the unknown. Overwhelmed by an unprecedented, uncontrollable urge to delve into the mystical realm to understand more and dispel the unknown. Klein also felt a strong desire to bury his head in the sand and pretend nothing had happened. Outside the window, the sunlight was strong, casting a layer of gold dust on his desk. Klein gazed at it, as if touching a thread of warmth and hope. He relaxed slightly, immediately feeling a surge of fatigue wash over him like a tidal wave. After a sleepless night and the recent exertion, his eyelids felt as heavy as lead and drooped uncontrollably. Shaking his head, Klein leaned on the desk edge, ignoring the rye bread placed at the corners, and staggered to his loft bed. As soon as he lay down and touched the pillow, he fell into a deep sleep. Gurgle, gurgle. Hunger woke Klein up, and he opened his eyes feeling refreshed, except for a slight headache. He rubbed his temples, sat up, and felt like he could eat an entire cow. As he straightened the wrinkles in his clothes, he went back to his desk and picked up the silver pocket watch with vine patterns. Snap! The cover popped open, and the second hand ticked away. 12:30. I slept for over 3 hours. Klein swallowed his saliva and tucked the watch into his linen shirt pocket. In the northern continent, a day is also divided into 24 hours, with each hour having 60 minutes and each minute 60 seconds. Whether a second here is the same length as on Earth, Klein did not know. For him, at this moment, words like mysticism, rituals, and the gray mist world could not enter his mind. The most important thing now was food. Food. Only after eating could he think of solutions and act. Without hesitation, Klein brought back the rye bread from the 4 corners, dusted off a bit of dirt, and decided to use one as his lunch. Due to a hometown tradition of sharing food offerings after rituals, and because the 4 loaves of rye bread appeared unchanged, he felt it was wise to be frugal, especially since he only had 5 pennies left in his pocket. This was also subtly influenced by the memories and habits of his former life. Since gas was too expensive, using it for lighting alone was painful, so he moved out the stove and added some coal, pacing back and forth, waiting for the water to boil. That type of rye bread would choke you if eaten dry. To live a life of black bread in the morning, black bread at noon, and only meat in the evening. No. If it weren't for Melissa considering my upcoming interview, I could only eat meat twice a week. Klein, idle and unable to think seriously due to hunger, looked around, thinking of the pound of lamb meat. He looked greedily at the cupboard. No, I should wait for Melissa to eat it together. Klein shook his head vigorously, denying the thought of cutting it in half and cooking it now. As a single man drifting in the big city, he mainly ate out, but he had honed basic cooking skills. Not delicious, but sufficient. Turning around, Klein decided to keep the potatoes out of sight. Just then, He suddenly remembered that besides buying meat this morning, he had also bought tender peas and potatoes. Potatoes. Instantly inspired, Klein spun around, dashed to the cupboard, and took out 2 potatoes. He first went to the communal washroom to clean the potatoes thoroughly, then directly put them in the pot to boil with water. After a while, he took out a spice box from the cupboard, lifted the lid, and sprinkled a little coarse, yellowish salt into the water. After patiently waiting a few more minutes, Klein lifted the kettle, poured the not-quite soup into several cups, a large bowl, and finally forked out the 2 potatoes onto the table. Phew! He peeled a bit of skin and blew on his hand. The aroma of the cooked potatoes gradually spread, enticing his appetite. Saliva secreted wildly. Klein couldn't wait. He didn't care that he had only peeled half. Didn't care that the potatoes were still hot. And took a big bite. Soft, fragrant, slightly sweet aftertaste. Klein's heart was instantly touched. And he devoured the 2 potatoes, even eating some of the skins. Only then did he pick up the large bowl and drink the soup, the light saltiness washing away the dryness in his mouth. I loved eating this way when I was a child. Klein, feeling somewhat full, silently reminisced as he broke the rye bread and softened it in the soup. Perhaps due to the high energy consumption of the previous ritual, he ended up eating 2 loaves. A full pound. Drinking the soup and tidying up, Klein felt thoroughly revitalized, once again experiencing the joy of being alive and basking in the brilliance of the sunlight. He sat back at his desk, beginning to contemplate what to do next. I can't run away. I must find a way to delve into the mystical realm and become the extraordinary that Justice and the Hanged Man spoke of. To overcome the fear that stems from the unknown. The only way now is to wait for the next gathering, to see if I can overhear the recipe for the audience's potion or other mystical knowledge. There are 4 days until Monday. And before then, I need to confront the issues of the original owner of this body. Why he committed suicide. What he experienced. Unable to travel back, Klein picked up the opened notebook, intending to look for clues to complete the missing pieces of memory. Clearly, the original owner had a habit of taking notes and using them as a diary. Klein knew well that the cabinet acting as the right leg of the desk was filled with completed notebooks. This one had been in use since May 10th, with the beginning mostly involving school, mentors, and knowledge. May 12th. Mr. Azka mentioned that the common language of the Byron Empire in the southern continent also originated from the ancient Fursic language, a branch of the Giants' language. Why is this so? Could it be that all sentient beings once used the same language? No, that must be wrong. Even in the records of the Revelation of Night and the Book of Storms, in times older than the ancient giants were not the sole dominators of the continents. There were elves, other species, and dragons as well. But then, these are just legends, just mythological stories. May 16th. Senior Associate Professor Cohen and Mr. Azka discussed the inevitability of the Steam Age. Mr. Azka believes it to be coincidental. Had Emperor Russell not appeared suddenly, the northern continent might still be in the cold weapon era like the southern continent. The mentor believes he overemphasizes the role of individuals. He is convinced that with or without Emperor Russell, there would have been an Emperor Robert. The Steam Age might have been delayed, but it would definitely have arrived. Their debate seems meaningless to me. I prefer discovering new things and restoring history shrouded in mist. Maybe I should not have studied history, but archaeology instead. May 29th. Welch found me and said he had obtained a notebook from the Fourth Epoch. My goddess. A Fourth Epoch notebook. He didn't want to ask the archaeology students for help but asked Naya and me to assist in deciphering its contents. How could I refuse such a thing? Of course. It will have to wait until after my graduation defense. I can't be distracted right now. At this point, Klein's spirits lifted. Compared to the history notes and ideological debates, the newly mentioned fourth epic notebook was more likely to have led to the original owner's suicide. The fourth epic, known as the era before the current Iron Age, was shrouded in mystery with many historical gaps. Even the unearthed tombs, ancient cities, and documents were scant, forcing historians and archaeologists to piece together a semblance of the original appearance. From the vague and faith-focused theological texts of the 7 major churches, knowing about the existence of the Solomon Empire, the Tudor dynasty, and the Trensost Empire, determined to pierce the veil and restore history, Klein, who was only interested in the mythic, pre-third epics, known as the Era of the Gods, was understandably excited. Hey, looking at this. The original owner was concerned about the job interview and future employment. But really, there's no need. Currently, universities were rare, and most students were either nobility or wealthy folks' children. Commoners, even if discriminated against and not included in social circles, could still gain valuable connections through group discussions and collective activities, which were incredibly precious resources. For instance, Welch Magwin was the son of a banker from Constance City in the Runes Kingdom's Intersea County. Generous and lavish in his spending, because he was often grouped with Klein and Naya for homework and reports, he habitually asked for their help. Without further digression, Klein continued reading the notes. June 18. I graduated. Farewell. My Hoy University. Quote, June 19. I saw that notebook. After comparing structures and roots, I discovered it is a variant of the ancient Fursic language. More precisely, it has been subtly evolving over more than 1,000 years. June 20. We deciphered the first page. The author was a member of a family called Antigonus. June 21. He mentioned the Black Emperor, which completely contradicts the previous contents-deduced era. Could the mentor be wrong? And Black Emperor actually refers to a common title for each emperor of the Solomon Empire? Quote, June 22. This Antigonus family seems to have had a prominent position in the Solomon Empire. The notebook's owner mentioned conducting a secret transaction with someone named Tudor. Tudor? The Tudor dynasty? Quote, June 23. I'm controlling myself not to think about that notebook. Not to go to Welch's place. I need to prepare for the interview. This is very important. Quote, June 24. Naya told me they made new findings. I think I should go take a look. June 25. From the newly deciphered content, the notebook's owner accepted a task to visit the Knights Nation at the summit of the Hornashes mountain range, the main peak over 6,000 meters. My goddess, how could there be a country at such altitude? How do they survive? Quote, June 26. Are all these strange things real? Quote, here, the notes ended. Steve had traveled through time on the early morning of June 28. That means, the note for June 27 actually exists. It's that one. Everyone will die, including me. Klein turned to the page he first saw, chillingly making his judgment. He felt that to unravel the mystery of the original owner's suicide, he should visit Welch again and review the ancient notes. But with his rich experience from novels, movies, and TV dramas, he sensed that if he went, especially if the matter was indeed related, he would likely encounter unknown dangers. Those who knowingly enter haunted castles are just cautionary tales. But not going wasn't an option either. Avoiding the problem would never solve it, only allowing it to accumulate until it overwhelmed him completely. Call the police? Surely. I can't say I've committed suicide. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, there came a series of urgent forceful knocks at the door. Klein sat up abruptly, listening intently. Thump, thump, thump. The knocking echoed through the empty, lonely corridor of the building.